Am I the a-hole for telling my family to shut up, get over themselves, and to accept that I never wanted my son to have the names they like? My wife, 25 female, and I, 26 male, welcomed our son Callum into the world just over a week ago. I had expected our son's name wouldn't be a favorite among my family, but I had believed and hoped they would just love us enough to accept that the name isn't one of the more vintage old-timey names my family loves. But they expressed their dislike for the name immediately and were asked to leave by me because my wife was in recovery and didn't need to deal with their bullshit. They called me up the next day and asked why we had gone so different from the rest of the family. I told them we went with a name we both loved and felt would work for our son his entire life. My family told me Callum is not the kind of name a person should wear into adulthood, that it ages terribly because it sounds like a little boy's name. I told them Callum is a well-established and long-used name, just not in the way they like for names to be. They told me Callum does not compare to the names my nieces and nephews have, or that my siblings have. I used to have another name and changed it at 18. So before I get too carried away, I should say that the types of names my family like are Reginald, Harold, Desmond, Bartholomew, Maximilian, Clarence, and my old name Herbert. Girls' names are the same old school style. My family loves that. I'm good with that. I wasn't good with my old name and changed it, and I didn't want a name for my son that fit with them. I told my family as they were complaining to me that we had decided, and the name was not changing, so they should adjust to it. They were quiet for a day, and then they got back in touch to say they could not bring themselves to accept this, and that I should really consider why they love the names they do. They said I damned myself when I changed my name, which is now Jamie, but I shouldn't do that to my son. When I didn't budge, they declared they would talk to my wife. I told them no way in hell are they bothering my wife with their crap when she's newly postpartum. We got into a fight and I told them to stop calling if they couldn't let it go. They showed up yesterday to see our son again, and I wasn't going to let them inside. But my wife, who knows what's been going on, thought maybe seeing Cal again would calm them down. It didn't. They started on the name shit again, and they did attempt to go through my wife, which is when I may have stepped over the line. I told them to shut up and get over themselves about the name, because my wife and I love it, and we're not changing it for them, and they need to accept I never wanted my son, or any kids I'd have to have names they like. I told them they knew that from the time I went to the effort and cost to change my own name. And I told them they had gone too far trying to pester my wife after being warned not to. They said I didn't need to be so rude to get my point across, and I believe I did. But I'm also doubting if I went too far. Am I the a-hole?
What the hell is wrong with your family? First, their names are so old-fashioned. Talking to them, I'd feel like I was in a BBC period piece. But apparently that's what they like, and so those are the names they've used. Second, they know you changed your name. Thank God. And so they should have been preparing for this moment since then. Why would you burden your son with the kind of name that you hated? They knew it was going to happen, and they've been badgering you anyway. That's not right. It's your child. They have no right to argue with your choice of names. Maybe you will start a trend. I can't believe all your cousins love those names either. They're just too afraid to speak up. It's also not right that they hassled your wife right after giving birth. But it sounds like she was expecting it anyway. It seems like no matter how much you abuse them, they're gonna come back. So I doubt you alienated them. Your response to them during that last visit should have been, well, you don't have to be so rude as to keep bringing up a subject that I've told you was closed. Not the a-hole, and I don't think you went too far. I mean, how many times do you have to say no before they will take it as your final answer? Probably a couple more. Congratulations on the birth of your son, Callum.
That's if they accept it. The way they're talking, I have a feeling we won't be seeing much of them, because they're just going to keep hating on the name, and I know a couple of our name choices they'll find downright repulsive compared to their preferred names.
Not the a-hole. You and your wife are the only two people who get to pick your son's name. If you family can't accept and use Callum's name, then tell them they won't have a relationship with him. Personally, I would make this my hill to die on.
It is for me, so I'm going to give them a little more time at a distance, but if it doesn't stop, well, that'll be it.
Not the a-hole. You tried being polite and it didn't work. Clearly you did, in fact, need to be rude to get them to back off. Honestly, I don't even understand their complaint. Callum definitely has an old school vibe to it.
But it's not the vintage old-fashioned they all prefer. At least from people I've met, a Callum could be any age, and that's sort of how the name sounds. Some would say it does sound young to them, but not like a name that would be bad on an adult. But my family are very rigid in names they like, so LOL.
Bro, you had to grow up being called Herbert. That should be considered child abuse. LOL, all those names are terrible. Callum is a good name. You did have to go to that point with your family. They're just mad because they thought they could bully you. Why are they so fixated on those god-awful names?
Am I the a-hole asking my daughter to pay me for cooking for her wedding? I, 46 female, greatly enjoy cooking and baking. I've always told my kids if they had a small wedding, I'd be happy to provide the food as a wedding gift. My daughter Leslie is getting married soon. They're having 47 guests total, so I offered to cook per my long-standing offer and said I could do something like my peppered beef or jambalaya with some jalapeno cheesy biscuits. Leslie and her fiancé Will took me up on it and said they'd help buy ingredients. Leslie sent me some recipes a few days ago, and when I asked what they were for, she said they wanted to add 1 or 2 big pot dishes that weren't spicy, so Will's family could have something to eat. I know that boy can't eat a popper, or most my meals without getting red in the face, but I didn't think his whole family was like that. Leslie said it's because his father has ulcers and stomach problems, so Will's family was careful how they ate while Will was growing up. I told Leslie I already told her what I was cooking for her wedding, and she argued that I'm making it about me instead of listening to what the bride and groom want. I finally told her I'd cook the extra dishes, but if she's going to treat me like I'm a caterer, then I'll need her to pay me for all the extra prep and work. Leslie said that gifts are supposed to be what the person receiving them wants, and that she might as well hire a caterer if she's going to pay, and hung up. I thought Leslie would cool down and come talk to me about how we'd handle this, and reasonable payment for taking on extra cooking. But my youngest told me when he went to visit Leslie, she and Will were talking with a catering company. Was I wrong to ask her to pay me for cooking?
You are the a-hole if you are only willing to make a spicy dish. If you want to make, or that is the only thing you know how to make, a peppered beef or jambalaya offer to make it not spicy. Wanting to make sure food is edible and enjoyable for all guests is common courtesy. If you want to lord over judge people for not liking spicy stuff, even if you don't think it's spicy, yeah, it makes you an a-hole. And yes, being strict about what your gift is without consideration of the receiver is bad behavior. If I know a child needs a 4-person car for their family, and I offer to buy them a 2-seater sports car, that would be a-hole behavior.
Also, she already knows one of the guests of honor at the wedding can't eat spicy food. Just fuck him at his own wedding, I guess.
Not just one of the guests of honor, but also the groom himself. Definite you are the a-hole and not for the asking for money part.
You offered to cook and never considered there would be a need for something other than spicy taste for a group of 50 people? Asking for a non-spicy dish sounds like a pretty prudent and reasonable request from the couple being considerate of their guests' needs tastes. If your offer was only good for spicy tastes and anything else costs extra, fine. Then they probably should find someone who can make something for the rest of their guests as well. If anyone is an a-hole here, I do not think it is the bridegroom.
You are the a-hole. You offered to cook for her. Her husband's family can't take hot food and you are dumping on them in this post for it. Yep. A-hole. Keep your opinions to yourself. Not to mention, her wedding, her rules. You are incredibly selfish for acting out like this. Are you sure you're not 10? This isn't your day. It's not about you.
You are the a-hole. You knew going into it that Will can't handle heat, so not only were you not considering that guests might be able to eat spicy food, you were just going to prepare food for his wedding that he would be unable to eat? That's wild. If you had wanted to make spicy dishes, you should have been prepared to make mild versions or alternatives. To then backtrack your offer to gift them, the food is messed up.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos.